Okay, so I'm back to hive number 1 now, which has struggled badly pretty much from week 4 on. The first queen they had from the nuke was amazing. She was laying up a storm, beautiful patterns, and they worked to replace her right off the bat. Right from day 1 there was just a ton of queen cells and supersedure cells and swarm cells going. And I tried to destroy them as much as possible, but eventually nature wins, right? And they replaced her with a queen that wasn't as good. Then they replaced that queen, and as recently as a couple of weeks ago, they had replaced that queen. So it seems like they've at least been on 3 queens that I know of. And like I've said before, I've tried to do a minimal amount of intervention. And the reason why is because, first of all, I'm very new at it. I'm not that experienced at it. But secondly, I do believe to a degree to try to let nature work itself out. Now, what we're doing is kind of counter to nature, but that's my belief is to try to intervene as little as possible, right? So I'm just going to try to do a detailed inspection here of every single frame, and see. I was last in this box about 2 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks before that, and it seemed like either the queen was laying unfertilized eggs, or there might have been a worker bee dropping eggs, because it was very unorganized, and mostly drone cells, drone eggs that were being laid. It's mid-September now, so they're getting rid of all their drones and just trying to prepare for the winter. So I'm going to see how much I can help them, and oh, phone's ringing, and just go from there. Okay, so I've smoked them. I've waited a couple of minutes. This hive hasn't been as nasty as far as the bees being aggressive. But what I really want to do this time, my goal for this inspection, is to find the queen, if they have a queen at all, and try to observe her and see what she's doing. So this inspection is going to take a while. I won't bore you with the entire inspection, but I'll show you a couple of troubled signs that basically show me that the hive is not in good shape. And if you have experienced beekeeping, you'll see what I mean. If you have no experience, then you can see what to look for as far as a sign that your queen is not laying properly, or not laying at all, or that you don't even have a queen. Right off the bat here, this is probably one of my biggest mistakes. I did take honey from this hive because I was told it was honey bound, and it was full of honey, and there was no room to lay eggs. I damaged the frames in the process, and I just put them back because I figured they would build them out again, and I was wrong. Now in my other hive, in the strong hive, of course they did build them out and they're perfectly fine, but in the weak hive you can see there's no honey in here, no real signs of any pollen, nothing productive coming from this frame at all. So it's a very, very bad sign when you're heading into the winter. You know that there's one frame for sure where they have absolutely no honey, and they probably didn't make brood in that frame either. So this frame is really heavy with honey and nectar, so that's a good sign. You can see it's almost 100% capped, which is very good. So they do have one frame almost full of honey. You can see at the bottom there, that's the remnants of the drone comb that they were making. And they still have a couple drones in there. There's a big fat drone that hasn't been expelled yet. His days are numbered because they're getting rid of those drones every minute now. Soon I'll arrive to a big pile of dead drones at the front of the hive, which is perfectly normal. They get rid of the drones. There's no real purpose for the drones over the winter. They would just take up their food stores. So bees use their natural process of selection to get rid of them. So here's another decent frame. Of honey and what was once brood. Yeah, there's still plenty of drones around. It's mid-September, but it's been incredibly warm. We've had record warm temperatures here in Toronto and Ontario. I don't think that will change their process much, because I'm sure the bees work more on inclination of the sun as opposed to actual temperatures as far as how they determine their calendar. But nonetheless, at least they've had an opportunity, a good opportunity to get a lot of pollen and a lot of honey flow. So these cells here are honey, pollen, and I'm looking for any signs of eggs, but I don't see any here. Again, I'm looking for the queen. I didn't really have a close look for the queen on those first two frames, but I really shouldn't I? These guys are starting to get a little ornery now, so I'm going to smoke them a bit. And overall, this hive hasn't been bad as far as temperament, but they tend to always get bothered when I start getting deeper into the hive, so that's okay. Okay, so I've completed the inspection of the top brood box, and as I expected, it's not a very good picture. There's just not many bees in there. There's still a lot of drones in there though. Mid-September, and they're just starting to get rid of them, it seems, but this hive has been a mess all year long, so who knows what they will or will not do. But there was some honey in there and some nice frames, but I'd say, you know, it's doing about 50% of what it should be doing. So I'm going to get into the bottom brood box. I did not see the queen, although honestly I haven't been that good at identifying the queen in my first year of beekeeping. I have found her a couple of times. So, and I just need to concentrate on each frame to see if I can find her. So I'm going to pull out a couple of frames here and show them to you and see how they're doing. Hopefully this bottom box is a little bit better. But, and hopefully I'll find the queen on here. If I do find the queen, I'll observe her and see if she's laying. I didn't find a single egg in that top brood box. I did see they're still doing a little bit of hatching of brood. Just a few cells that are just coming out sort of as I'm inspecting them. So we'll see how this bottom brood box does. First couple of frames might tell us the story, but I'll take a frame from the middle as well and show it to you just to see if it's doing any better. Yeah, this frame doesn't feel very good at all. You can see there's just nothing going on. It's been built out maybe 30%, and it's just a complete waste. And that frame had been built out before. It had been full, not built out, but it was the last frame that was empty when I added the second brood box. So once I added the second brood box, they didn't do anything with it. Here you can see a little bit of drone comb there. Again, probably a sign that the queen was either infertile or that worker bees have been laying drone eggs. And they're still hatching right now, so I mean, it's really no good for them to hatch out drones now, because they're just going to kill them or evict them, one of the two. But either way, it's just not a good hive, right? Look at this side here, and it's got a bit of honey, not much, and a bit of old brood, but just not very developed at all, and not something that's conducive to them surviving the winter. So next frame, pretty much the same story. You can tell as soon as you go to pull them out if they're extremely light. Now this frame tells an interesting story. You can see there's just honey on the outsides, none across the top, which there should be. It should be about an inch or so across the top, and it should angle down more or less at a 45-degree down here, and then have an inch or two along the sides. But you can see this thing's nowhere close to that, and it's just very light. There's nothing happening. There's a little bit of pollen in there. There's some sealed, again, looks like drone brood that's going to hatch out any minute now. but it's just not something, it's not the way a frame should look as you head into winter. I've tried to take a close look at this hive as well for mites or hive beetles or anything, but I can't see any sign of them. And I will treat the hive before we go into the winter, but there's nothing obvious that is a sign of why they're not healthy. See this side of this frame too, it's the same thing. It's just not a good looking frame at all. There's some brood either trying to hatch or brood that's dead. They just haven't pulled out yet. You see that thing right there? So I guess that thing's alive. So maybe that's going to be a little hatchling, but it looks like it's all drone, so it doesn't matter. As soon as it hatches, they're basically going to get rid of it. So not a very good sign. It's pretty easy to look for the queen because there are so few bees here that pretty much figure you'd spot her if she's there, but there's certainly no sign of any kind of a laying queen or worker bee right now. So again, if you have any suggestions, I appreciate it. The one thing I won't do is I won't take frames from my good hive and put them in here. I just want to let the good hive continue on as is and have this hive either make it or break it on its own with moderate to minor intervention on my part. Again, another frame here that looks like the others, just a little bit of honey. Certainly not enough to feed them through the winter. And this frame's got a decent amount of bees on it, but they're just not doing much. There's no nectar in there, there's no pollen, very little. And certainly is no queen bee either. Lots of drones though. If you want drones, I got them. So I'm just concluding the inspection of my sick hive here. And again, by sick, I don't mean that it's disease ridden by any way. I don't see any varroa. I don't see any hive beetles or anything. The only thing I do see is the odd wasp, small, tiny little wasp that's coming in. But I mean, I've seen 2 or 3 of them, and I think they're coming in from outside now that the hive's open. So I don't think they've robbed or attacked or anything. I think this hive has just been queenless or trying to create a new queen the whole summer. So the numbers are very low. There is no queen that I've found. There's no sign of brood hatching. Well, there's sign of brood hatching, as you can see here, but there's no sign of proper brood laying or new worker bees being developed in the last month. It's all this drone comb that hasn't helped at all. And what I may do is I may reduce the hive to just 1 brood box for the winter and see if that will help them survive, because there's just not enough bees in here, I don't think, to survive the winter in 2 full brood boxes. So I'm just going to put this hive back together as 2 right now, but then probably the next time I come next week I will reduce it down to 1 brood box, 1 10-frame brood box. I'll pick the 10 best frames. They do have some honey. I mean, I don't think it's enough to make it through by any calculations that I've been told to make, but I'll take the 10 best frames and put them in, and I will feed both hives. I will treat both hives for varroa, although I haven't seen any sign of it, and there's probably another treatment or 2 that I can do just to help them get through the winter, and then we'll see how they do. So thanks for joining me on 4D Honeybee.